On this special edition, fourth episode of the Heart of the Game podcast, we are coming to you live from Global Football Innovation Academy, a beautiful 20-acre campus outside of Houston, Texas, here in the Woodlands. On this episode, which is a special one, we're going to be joined by Gareth Glick, the Academy Director of GFI. We'll talk about his career in coaching, how he ultimately got to this academy, and what places him at the heart of the game. If you're into football, if you're a passionate fan, or if you're just someone who's curious about the landscape of American soccer, you definitely want to tune into this one, as I'm Brian McDonough, the host, and we'll take you on this journey as we talk to Gareth Glick over the next 40 plus minutes here on the Heart of the Game podcast. Gareth, it's great to have you on today's podcast. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Well, Gareth, for anyone who doesn't know who you are, can you quickly introduce yourself and let us know what you do here at GFI?
So my name's Gareth Glick. I'm the Academy Director at GFI Academy, and really the Academy Director means I oversee the sporting side of the club, from our high-performance teams to our competitive to our recreational teams.
And we're sitting here at this beautiful, world-class 20-acre campus in the Woodlands, Texas. And obviously, we're going to talk a lot about GFI later on the show. I'm kind of curious about your personal journey. Everyone has a soccer origin. Where did that start for you?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in England, moved to Texas when I was 14 years old, and played the game here just after '94 when the World Cup was here last. So it's kind of been an interesting last 30 years, and leading into the World Cup, they'll be here next summer. So seeing the growth of the game during that time and been part of it the whole time.
And you've seen the growth from like different avenues, I'm sure. So I know that you are originally from England, right? Mm-hmm. We talked about that. Mm-hmm. Coming over here as a teenager, what was that like? So I assume playing in England and then coming to the United States, was there that youth adjustment as well? Yeah,
I mean, the game, it's interesting because I talk to people all the time about how the game has changed so significantly in the last 30 years from where the World Cup was in '94 when I moved here. There were no professional leagues. The MLS league had just started. Watching the game on TV was almost impossible. And now my two boys watch the game. They can watch basically any game anywhere in the world all the time. It's almost easier to watch it here than it is anywhere else. Kids watch the game, play the game, talk about the game. There's more of a culture around the game, where it was almost kind of an anomaly in '94 when I moved here. So I always think it's interesting to talk to people about how the game has progressed, and as we move into 2026 World Cup, instead of jumping off from the base, there's a structure in place, there's a culture in place, and so it's going to be exciting to see.
And I think like you're at this amazing backdrop here. So we're like I said, at Global Football Innovation Academy in the Woodlands. It's a beautiful area if anyone's never been here. Talk a little bit about Houston and the role that will have at the World Cup as a city. You think it'll bring a lot of excitement to this area, to the academy? Do you see the World Cup coming to the United States as just further progressing youth football and soccer development here?
I hope so. I really do. I hope it's not a moment that is like comes and goes and is not taken advantage of. I think there's a lot of opportunities there. Houston as a city is so unique, and the Woodlands obviously is a suburb of Houston, but the Woodlands is and is a microcosm, I guess, of the larger city. But the city's so diverse. We talk about this in our club. We actually survey our parents when they register at the beginning of the year. And I just pulled this data just a month or so ago. We have 81 different countries represented within our club.
Wow.
So there's only 195 countries in the entire world, almost 50% represented within our club. Our coaching staff has 19 different nationalities. So we've got this diversity, and I think it's great because we celebrate that diversity within our club and within the city, and the World Cup represents that. So hopefully hosting all these games and people being able to access it here in Houston. And I think the thing I think is going to be most interesting is that the people of Houston, I don't think, understand how many people are going to arrive in the city from how many different countries and how culturally diverse the experience is going to be for the World Cup. I think everyone views it as almost like the Super Bowl, where someone shows up for the weekend and then they leave. It's like, no, people are going to, like, whatever team puts bases here, has games here, people will camp here for like a week essentially. And so it's going to be really interesting for them to see that. Yeah,
and I think what's so fascinating is even just walking around GFI, we heard a lot of different languages here. So you talk about the diversity of your coaching staff, and as the academy director, having all of those players and parents, particularly I'm sure parents, and speaking different languages, and how do you communicate them effectively, and does that play a role in who you recruit in terms of coaching?
Yes, a little bit. I mean, ultimately we want to recruit good people and people who care about people. That's our number one target when we're hiring coaches. And I think we also want our staff to be a reflection of our players and our families, and we want that diversity. There's multiple different languages spoken within our coaching staff, and it's always cool to see. We've got like an Italian contingent, we've got our Spanish and Mexican contingent, and Central and South American contingent. We've got a couple of Dutch coaches, we've got Serbian coaches, Romanian coaches, and they kind of interact with each other, and it's fun to have that kind of diversity within our staff.
Yeah, and I think that's like what I noticed really when we were walking around, and also everyone was just so approachable, and I thought that was like awesome. Coming into this academy, being here for the first time, walking around, doors were open, everyone was very nice. You had to describe the dynamic of GFI in one word, or maybe even a sentence. What would that be?
For me, we want it to be a community, like a place where people want to be, where they want to feel part of something, they belong to something, and that they feel welcomed, and it just this sense of belonging essentially in the community is important.
So I know innovation being at the center of your name, so Global Football Innovation Academy, and you have to compete, right? So you have some of the premier teams here in Texas, in the United States. How do you continuously compete and stay true to the name? With innovation in your name, you have to deliver. How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're always trying to find different ways to develop coaches, develop players, be innovative in the things that we do, whether it's through sports science, whether it's through sports psychology, whether it's through support structures for college and recruitment, whether it's through use of technology like SciSports or VEOs or all the different things that we utilize within the club. Even when it comes to like, how do we communicate? How do we organize? How do we structure things? I think without always like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, we're always trying to start off with, is that work? And if it doesn't work, not just because it's always been done that way, how do we do it differently? So trying to change that mold constantly, I think that's part of what we do.
Yeah, we talked a lot to your coaches earlier, so Vicente and Stefano, and they were tremendous. And we talked a little about the role data plays, here at GFI. You talked about innovation. What would you say, what is the role data plays? And particularly the partnership with SciSports, do you feel like that is putting you guys in the right position to further the development of your players here?
Yeah, we're always trying to find ways to be objective in our analysis, whether it's analysis of the match, whether it's analysis of players, and whether it's understanding the strengths of players and the weaknesses of players and the areas of development, whether we're working with them in their IDPs, rather than it being a subjective, I think you can work on this. It's let's show you the data that supports this. Let's show you the video clips that support the data. And that's where SciSports is really important for us, both as a team development, but also as an individual development, because ultimately we're trying to develop individual players within the framework of a team game. And that's the real challenge, is how do our coaches meet the individual needs of players within this larger group? So they're trying to play games, they're trying to get results, but we're focused on the individual long-term development, because we're a youth soccer club and we're developing players for the future. So, a player at 12, 13, 14 years old may be something very different later on. And so how do we develop them as individuals to maximize their potential? And that's where the data for us is really helpful.
So for our viewers, if you can explain like how the greater GFI Academy works. It can be a little confusing if you're an outsider looking in, all the different clubs, all the different levels, whether it's rec, whether it's MLS NEXT, if you can kind of package that all.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have a pathway that starts from the very introduction of players. So at 4 or 5 years old, they can come into our recreational program, and that's an introduction to the game. And for us, that's where we want to introduce a love of the game and a love of the ball. And from there, they can progress into our competitive teams. And our competitive teams, we have different levels within our competitive teams that play in local and then state and regional leagues. And those groups really start at under 8s, so 7-year-olds up until U19s. And we have different locations for each of those competitive programs. So right now we have locations in the Woodlands, a location just east of the Woodlands in Grand Oaks. We've got a location in central Houston in the Spring Branch area, and we have a location in Sugar Land in the southwest area. And so each of those teams have that, and then they feed into like what we term our high performance environments. And those are on our girls side, our GA Aspire and our DPL teams, and on our boys side, our MLS NEXT Academy, MLS NEXT Homegrown, and then our MLS NEXT Academy teams. And then in our U10 through U12, our high performing teams are our Next Gen on the boys side and our GA Futures girls. And they kind of all feed into these higher level programs. So for us, we're a club that we want everyone to play the game, regardless of what their interests are, their level of commitment, their ability. Ultimately, we just want them to love the game and to enjoy playing the game, and so that's our goal when we build these programs.
Yeah, I even failed to mention earlier that you guys have multiple locations. So it's like you're here, you would assume this is the only location because it's a beautiful place. I see you're actually building an area for education for the players to live. Can you talk a little bit about that, like the expansion, where you guys are now, where you started, and ultimately where you want to go?
Yeah, so I think the best way to describe that is we go back to where we started. So we're starting, or in the middle, I guess, of year 3. So this started in 2023, and Joel Vergas had the idea of wanting to create this club that he and I had spoken about for years, and creating a place where we wanted people to go and be part of a community. And he bought the land, and we started. And I think the initial intention was we thought, maybe we'll have like 500 players, and that would be great. And then it grew to the first year we started with 1,000 players, and it kind of shocked us. Yeah. And over the last 2.5 years, it's grown to a point where we have more than 2,500 players across all of our programs, and it's unique. It's really challenging, but for us, it's exciting. The boarding school is kind of part of the next progression of having a place where either people from outside the community can come in, tying education into school, and creating those high performance environments too, where people who are wanting more out of their soccer experience can have kind of a full-time experience.
I kind of want to peel back a little bit the layers of our conversation, because I feel like we skipped 30 years of your career, 20 years of your career. Because prior to GFI, I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, creeping around a little bit. You're at the high school level for years as a head coach. Yeah. It seems like locally within Texas, I believe.
Yes.
What type of experience did that give you when it comes to dealing with all different kids of diverse backgrounds, different abilities? And how do you think that relates, and how do you think that has, let's say, built your abilities as a academy director? Yeah,
I mean, I think at heart I'm an educator, and so when I graduated from college, I was a high school teacher and coach, and I love teaching, just whether it's teaching players, teaching coaches. I'm still an educator now for US Soccer and coaching licenses, so I teach grassroots and D licenses and then B licenses, which I'm actually in the middle of coaching now as we discussed. So those are, really kind of at the root is about individual development and teaching and how do we improve people. And so that really ties in. I used to present at a high school coaches conference when I left high school teaching, I was the state technical director for South Texas, and I actually used to give a presentation where I talked about good teachers make great coaches, because the thing that you do in the classroom is the same thing that you do on the field. So a lot of high school coaches who maybe didn't have a background in soccer, my point to them was how you structure your classroom is how you structure your planning on the field, whether it's your year-long scope and sequence, whether it's your units and your tests, and these relate to a macro cycle and a micro cycle, and your lesson plans relate to your training session plans, and how this all connects together, and the individual development plan within that framework. So it's like all the things, they're just called something different when we're talking about soccer and athletics, but when we're talking about education, it's the same thing. And if you can do those things in the classroom, then you can be really successful out here. And I think the reverse too, there's so many coaches that we have on our staff that have never taught, but I think if I put them into a high school history class or something and said, hey, can you teach this? They would be able to do it because of how they ask questions and how they guide learning. So that's key for us,
I think part of teaching is also understanding the student, the athlete, who they are as a person, who they are as a player, and being able to analyze maybe their strengths and weaknesses, of course. So whether it's in the classroom or it's in the high school soccer versus GFI, do you oftentimes see players come in who are brand new to GFI and over the course of a couple of years just change completely? For the better attitude, and would you say that GFI does a great job cultivating that?
I mean, I think that's our goal, right, is to create that environment for it. And I think we talk a lot about, ultimately players have to take ownership of their own development. And so for us, it's how do we create the correct environment for them? How do we create the correct, the correct elements that they need in order to be successful? So how do we provide the resources for them, and then you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Yes,
so how do you provide these resources and allow them to then take advantage of them and maximize them? And again, it's up to the individual, and individual development is the key for us, absolutely.
Individual development, and then at the top of the level here is MLS NEXT, correct? Can you explain a little bit about what MLS NEXT is, what it means for GFI to compete at that level, and just kind of go into that structure too, because I think that's a little bit confusing to anyone who's just joining.
Yeah, so on the boys side, our highest level is our MLS NEXT program. So we have our MLS NEXT Homegrown, which is the highest level, and then we have our MLS NEXT Academy programs. And we actually have an MLS NEXT Academy program in the north and in the south of the city. So we have 2 of those. So that's 12 teams that operate from U13 to U19 in the academy, and then 6 teams that operate in the U13, U19 and homegrown. There's probably a debate within the country, but for me, the MLS NEXT is the highest platform of youth soccer in the country, and the fact that our teams are playing against the Houston Dynamo, Austin FC, FC Dallas. These are within their league, Colorado Rapids, Sporting KC. These are all teams that they're playing on a consistent basis. It gives them exposure at the highest level. It gives them the opportunity to see, and compete against those teams. And we've been really successful in that environment as well. Last year, out of our 6 teams, 5 out of the 6 qualified into what were the playoff events, essentially through MLS NEXT. Yeah. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't believe anyone else did that across the country. So we were really proud of that and really excited by the performances of those teams. And not only that, but they did it playing in a way in which we wanted them to play. And so, the thing about MLS and the homegrown is that the attraction that it has for players and what it draws players into the group. And then for us, is the coaches as well, because coaches want to work in that environment. They want to be challenged in that environment. And so how do we provide the resources for those coaches and those players to be successful in that environment? And to do that in year 2 last year was really good. Maybe we set the bar a little too high, and we'll see if we can continue. But it's a testimony to the work that our coaching staff does and the work that our players do as well, which is fantastic.
It's incredible. It's only been 3 years. Yeah. So it's hard to just build a winning culture, which means that I'm sure you do a great job evaluating talent. Your coaching staff does the same thing. Would you say this greater Houston area is a hotbed for soccer talent for anyone who is unaware? Just kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, what are there, 3.2 million people in the greater Houston area? So a friend of mine who worked in soccer used to reference that Houston was as big as Croatia, and so if Croatia is able to be in the World Cup final, then how are we not producing players out of Houston? And I think that historically there's not been a pipeline of players coming out of Houston. There's been players, but maybe not at the level that we would expect to come out of Houston, given the size of the city and the diversity of the city. To have, and not just diversity of the city, but diversity of the city from countries where football is the primary sport.
Yeah,
exactly right. I mean, so many Central and South American countries represented within Houston, West African countries represented within Houston, really the whole world. I mean, the oil and energy sector brings in so many people, the medical center brings in so many people, that we have this diversity of people who bring this love and passion of the game here. And you can drive around the city and see people playing pickup games all over the place, men's leagues and all sorts. So there is that culture here, and I think that for us is an untapped resource of how do we find these players and develop these players and provide them with the correct resources that maybe haven't been there prior, so that we can create more pros and more players who go on and represent Houston.
And Elliot and I, so the producer Elliot, we were driving around a little bit earlier. We saw kids playing in the schoolyard, like literally right down the street from here. You're driving in, so I can see that. And then you have all these different locations scattered around the greater Houston area. So much talent. How do you create that pathway to GFI? How do you recruit? How do you evaluate the talent? We talked to Vicente a little earlier, so I know he does a great job. Yep. What does that look like? Because that can probably get a little bit crazy, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest challenge that we have. And I think one area we also didn't touch on probably in Houston is our climate as well, right? Year round, was it November 13th today or 14th, whatever the day is, and outside it's 85 degrees and it's like beautiful weather. So there's very few days where we miss because of that. So from a development perspective, that's fantastic as well. I think, to your point, having Sugarland, having Spring Branch, I mean, if we go from our north location to Sugarland, it's an hour and 15 minutes, maybe without traffic. And if I go at the wrong time, it could take me 2 hours to get there. So yeah, we have a GFI location. For me, the key is having good people in all those places who are aligned with what our values are, aligned with what we want to do with players, aligned with our game model. We have a very clear game model and methodology for how we want coaches to work with our players and how we want our teams to play. And so the biggest challenge as we grow is how do we maintain consistency and standards at those different locations, making sure, they're always going to be different because they're different locations and they have different facilities, or they have different coaches, or they have different directors, and they have different leagues in some of the locations. So there's always going to be a difference, but how do we have a consistency of how we coach, how we teach, how we want people to learn, how we want our teams to play. And for me, ultimately, that comes down to hiring really good people who care about people, and that's our focus.
I think part of it's also, community too. So you want the community to rally around GFI, I'm sure, right?
Exactly.
So all these different locations, how do you engage with the community? In professional sports, they're always talking about activation, getting those fans excited. Do you do the same thing locally within all of the, let's call it, satellite locations, if you want to call it that, or the different locations of GFI?
Yeah, I think this is our biggest challenge. And if you speak to people at different locations, everyone thinks that there's another location that gets more attention. And so it's challenging for us. I go, on site visits consistently and walking around and checking how things are going and how our coaches are operating, how our directors are operating. We have weekly directors meetings to align. I meet individually with directors every other week. So there's a consistency there. Yeah, I think that is the biggest challenge, is how do we feel all connected to something? And I don't know that I have the perfect answer for that. And I think it's a continued work in progress. I think it's something we need to continue to improve on. But I think that's an area that when you're as big and as spread out as we are, it's always going to be a challenge to create that. And it's probably never going to be perfect, but there's a cultural expectation of this is how we want to be, and then how do we meet those standards.
It's also only year 3, so you guys
maybe.
are kind of,
Maybe.
So there is, and you did very well last year, as you said, so I think you guys are off to a great start.
We're hoping,
yeah. Let's talk about that. It's year 3, soon it'll be year 4, year 5, year 10, 15, 20. How does that look, the future of GFI Academy, and what do you want to be?
Yeah, I think ultimately we want to maintain the standards that we had at the beginning, and then this idea of community. And then again, the challenge is, as we continue to grow that, how do we maintain what we wanted initially when it was 1,000 players and we thought there would be 500 players. I think that the growth of the club will continue. I don't know if it will continue at the same rate that we've been at, but it'll continue and grow into different areas. And I think that I don't know that the club will maintain just its Houston location. I think there's other locations beyond that we would like to continue to grow and hopefully bring the GFI model to other people and introduce them to that.
So we've talked a lot about your personal journey, a little bit about that, about GFI, the potential expansion of GFI, community, and everything like that. Coming from Leeds, coming to the United States, I always like to ask this to all my guests: what's your fondest football? I'll say football because or soccer memory.
Yeah, it's football.
Yeah.
My fondest football memory.
It could be anything. So it could be your playing career. It could be GFI. It could be high school coaching. Like, you just had to say something that made maybe even a point where you realized that this was it. You have a passion for the game.
Yeah. Man, there's so many. I'm not even sure where I would go with that. I mean, I think if I compartmentalize in the different areas that I've been involved in. Obviously, looking at GFI and the growth over the last 3 years, when I take time to stop and think where we were and where we are, I'm immensely proud of that and the growth that's gone in, and the hard work that lots of people have put into making that happen. I think when I think about it from a personal level, my value of seeing former players that are coaches. We have former players of mine that are coaches on our staff here at GFI, which is great to see, and seeing those people being successful in life. I've got former players who are college coaches, and seeing former players that are parents and successful professionals. Those things are really important to me. All those things kind of come in watching my own 2 kids play the game and continue to play the game. I'm proud that they enjoy playing the game, and that's something that's valuable to them. If you talk about Leeds, probably, I don't know, I was a season ticket holder. Watching us win the league in '92 was pretty cool. Being able to watch Marcelo Bielsa coach your club for 3.5 years was a pretty special experience too. So those are all things that really stand out to me.
I guess that's another segue question too, which I think is fun to ask. As a coach, as an evaluator of talent, academy director, who do you look up to in terms of, is there that coach that you've always kind of was your North Star as you've been going through your career, or?
No, I wouldn't say coaches have been a North Star. I think there's a lot of people that I've worked with who have influenced me in ways in which they've given me opportunities and seen something in me maybe that have been really, valuable in my life.
Sure.
But even every day, like just working around coaches here and learning from other coaches that are here and seeing things and interacting with them and yeah, I mean, I think for me it's everyone that I'm around and I see value in. I've definitely had people who have been mentors to me personally, but more just the day-to-day interactions. And I wouldn't say I tend to take more from people that I see in a day-to-day environment that I interact with more than someone on a TV screen or someone like that. I mean, Bielsa's probably the closest in that the game was so unique to watch and watching Leeds play in that manner made me think about the game very differently than I thought about it before. But other than that, I think it's more about the people and the relationships.
Which I think is the definition of the heart of the game. So that's like what the whole podcast is about. We've been blessed with multiple great guests. You've been a tremendous guest. Talking about your journey and where you are, and want to thank you for that. But this next part of the podcast is going to be the trivia, which is a little bit different here. So we're live in person, and we have this, which is a whiteboard. So I'm going to give Gareth the whiteboard, and I'm going to ask you the multiple choice questions, Gareth. So how we do it is multiple choice. You're going to put down obviously A, B, C, or D. All right. It's tied to Dutch football because SciSports does have that Dutch contingent. That's where we come from. Yep. So specific professional football nods to Dutch culture here. And we're gonna get started. So 5 questions, 5 multiple choice questions. Not to put the pressure on, but the last 3 guests have all gone 5 for 5. So either my questions are too easy here.
All right, we'll see.
Or I don't know. We just have some really smart guests. But first question number 1. Who scored the stunning diving header for Netherlands against Spain in the 2014 World Cup? So we're going back to the 2014 World Cup. Was it A, Arjen Robben, B, Wesley Sneijder, C, Robin van Persie, or D, Wout Weghorst?
I'm going to go with C.
And if you want to show the camera. C. That is correct, C. Right. So 1 for 1. Yeah. Erase that, and we'll move on to the second question. So that takes the pressure off.
All right. Yeah.
Question number 2. Which Dutch club is nicknamed, and I always apologize for my pronunciation of the Dutch here, Die Kastelheren, the Lord of the Castle? Is it A, Sparta Rotterdam, B, FC Den Bosch, C, PEC Zwolle, or D, Roda JC? Or Roda JC? It's the Lords of the Castle. If you want me to repeat them, I can
repeat the choices for me real quick. Let me see.
Sparta Rotterdam, number is A. B, FC Den Bosch. C, PEC Zwolle. D, Roda JC. Roda JC.
Say Roda JC, but I'm not sure. What's that look?
It is Sparta Rotterdam, but that's the one I actually would have gone with too. So Elliot got that correct earlier.
Trying to figure out the
Elliot got that correct earlier. I didn't get that one correct. That's a tough one. No, these aren't easy.
Yeah, seriously.
Question number 3. Who was the Dutch goalkeeper known for his penalty saves during the 2014 World Cup? So we're going back to the 2014 World Cup. The Netherlands had a pretty good, performance there, of course. Not as good as 2010, but solid in 2014. Was it A, Jasper Cillessen? Was it B, Piet Schrijvers? Was it C, Edwin van der Sar? Or was it D, Tim Krul?
2014. I'm trying to think if that's Cillessen or van der Sar.
The other one was Piet Schrijvers or Tim Krul.
I'm going to go with... Oh, man. I'm going to go with A. I'm not sure if that's right.
It is D. That's a tough one though. It's the
Oh my gosh.
Don't worry.
D was what? Who was
D was Tim Krul.
Tim Krul, really?
Yeah.
Newcastle goalkeeper. Okay.
Question number 4. Which club supporters are known as Dead Tuckers? I actually don't know exactly what that means. But FC Twente, that's A. B. SC Harnwijn, that's B. Sparta Rotterdam, C. Or D. Vitesse? This might...
One of our directors is Leroy, and he's a massive Vitesse supporter, and I feel like if I don't get that right, he's going to be upset at me.
If you don't get it right, my Dutch is terrible, so it's okay. We're
We'll
both...
see.
I can't... I'm also not doing the best job.
I'm just, in Leroy's name, I'm going to go with D, and he's going to kill me if I'm wrong, so we'll see.
It was Twente.
Oh, Twente.
Yeah.
Okay. One for, man.
It's okay.
Rough. All right, here we go.
These aren't... And also, I think in person it's harder.
Well, I was thinking, honestly, my Dutch football knowledge is not great. I was thinking we're talking about 1970, 74. I was like, oh, we're good. We go back to the Cruyff days. We're okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, it's tougher in person, and I'm not saying my guests could be looking them answers up remotely, but you never know.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe so.
I don't know.
In person might be killing me.
Question number 5. Who is the all-time leading Dutch goal scorer for Leeds United? Is it A, João Piro? Is it B, Crescencio Somerville? Is it C, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank? Or is it D, Pierre Michel Lassoga?
I'm pretty sure that's got to be Hasselbank.
That is Hasselbank. That's the question that matters. So
yeah. Hasselbank was there long enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Well,
Definitely
Gareth,
the best Dutch player ever to play for.
he's the best of all time. But this has been tremendous. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate your time.
Excellent. I appreciate it too. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. If you guys enjoyed this episode of the Heart of the Game podcast, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And if you prefer audio, we are on Spotify, we are on Amazon, we're everywhere you get your pods. I'm Brian McDonough. This is the Heart of the Game podcast, and I'll see you in the 5th episode. Take care, everyone.